Welcome to Shiftology Live, where the practical, personal, and spiritual sides of business meet to create magic and connection in your business and life. I'm your host, Terry Wilderman, and the founder of Intuitive Leadership. Today, I have a very special guest with us. And this guest is someone who's been in my life since 2009. And I'm going to share our story before I actually ask him to share his bio, because our story is pretty powerful. One day, and I don't even remember how I found it, I found this book, Spiritual Selling. And so we're talking 2008, 2009. And you will notice in here that I think I have every other page dog-eared. Okay, it is a really, really good page, good book. And I connected with our guest, Joe Nunziata, via phone. I don't even remember when I picked up the phone or called you, but all I know is I needed to get in touch with you. And we did. And I remember clear as day sitting at my desk in my leadership center, and we're talking about sales, we're talking about spirituality, we're having a blast. And suddenly I keep getting these images and these images. And it was Joe's father-in-law who came through. And that was Joe's first experience with me as a medium. For all these years, since 2009, Joe has been a bug in my back to share with the world about my medium and channel skill sets. And that I'm sharing that with you because, believe it or not, this is all part of the sales process. And it's about being authentic with who it is that you are. So, without wasting any more time, welcome Joe Nunziata, my very, very good friend. And by the way, his wife, her birthday is on the same day as mine. So we're
That's
birthday
right.
twins.
That is
We're,
right.
we're birthday twins.
Yes.
And I just want to thank you publicly, even before you open your mouth. Thank you for just being there because I know we mentor each other, and
Yes.
what a blast it is.
Oh yeah. All the time.
All the time it is. So, Joe, tell us about you. Give us a
Well,
little bit about your
before I
bio.
do that, I just want
Yeah.
to kind of clear the story a little bit because you had emailed me. We set up
Oh,
a
is that what it
phone
was?
call. You had emailed me first. We set up a phone. We scheduled a call. In
Hmm.
between that time period, my father-in-law passed away in my house, and
Oh,
we had the call scheduled for the next week, but we had scheduled it well before,
okay.
and I, of course, did not know you were a medium at that time. And we
I
get on
didn't
the
tell
phone.
very many people that.
I know, right? So we get on the phone and we start. You want to talk to me about spirituality and business and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, just so everybody knows, in the middle of the conversation, you said to me, wait a minute. I have a guy here. He said he's your father in law. And I'll never forget because you said he's sitting outside in a chair, like a rocking chair, and he's drinking scotch. You said to me, he's drinking like Johnny Walker Black. You actually told me the exact scotch, and I was like, who are you? So this was not the expected conversation. So I just want everyone to know it was amazing. You've done many of those for me in all these years that we know each other. And it was amazing, and you're amazing at it. I keep telling Terry that she should be doing this with people, and she refuses. So everybody who listens to this, please tell her to start doing it right away. So that is my. I just want to make sure everybody got the whole story as far as what really happened because it was totally
Okay.
unexpected. Unexpected, right? It was an unexpected thing, certainly for me, because I had no idea you did that, and it was a week later after my father-in-law had passed away. So it was kind of fortuitous for both of us, but I think it was meant to be, of course, that way.
Yeah, well, when that happens, it's often unexpected for me too, because I'm never
Yeah.
sure when I'm not one of those folks who can turn it on and off. It just sort of happens when it's supposed to. And I was as surprised as you were. Trust me on that one.
Well,
It still surprises me.
yes.
So, yeah. And because of you, I rebranded this week.
There you go.
So my Facebook page is rebranded. The banners are rebranded. We identified my ideal clients as conscious spiritpreneurs. I've owned that domain now for many years, and you push me And you finally said, what are you waiting for? So
It only took me 12 years.
that's right. So let's get into the spiritual selling thing, because the spiritual selling, everything we're talking about, people might say, well, what does this have to do with selling? It has everything to do with spiritual selling. Because if you're not authentic with who you are, and if you're not in integrity and in alignment with who you are, guess what? It's challenging to sell what it is that you have to offer, right?
Well, I think it's an interesting concept when we talk about sales, because obviously we're in a physical third dimensional world. And there are certain people who, I always identified people as soul sellers and 3D sellers, right? So the 3D sellers don't care about anything. They just care about money. And those are the people. I used to make a joke when I was a sales manager. I'd say they'll run you over in the parking lot to beat you to the account, right? Because that's who they were. So
Okay.
those people, some of them are successful financially. Obviously, internally they have other issues, but because they only focus on money, and they'll, in effect, for lack of a better term, screw you over or be deceitful or do whatever it takes, like a con man, and they can be successful. What we're talking about are people who are what I would call soul sellers at a higher level. We can't do that. We do not resonate with that. We have to be authentic. We have to do something that we feel is helping the other person. We're looking for the win-win. We have a very different way of approaching the world. But there are people, because people ask me this question almost every week, and I'll say, yeah, but I know this guy and he's screwing everybody. He's making a lot. I said, yeah, well, that could happen because we are in a physical world. And if that's all you focus on, but you don't know the collateral damage that person is causing others and themselves. So again, it's not, it's kind of, people think it's a mystery. To me, it isn't, because we know how energy works.
Yeah. And what I know about the way that you teach spiritual selling, it really is another term for it can be heart-centered selling. You're selling from the heart of service to humanity. And that's how I also interpret the soul seller. Is that yes?
Yes, soul seller is out there selling with the intent. I think a lot of it to me is intent. Your
Hmm.
intention is to help the other person. The thing that I think a lot of people miss in the soul seller world is one of the people that's supposed to be helped is also you. So I think that we, as people who are on this healing path, whatever you want to call it, we have a tendency to want to help everybody, but sometimes put ourselves at the end of the line. It's not a good idea, because the universe, as we know, does seek balance regarding energy. So if you're giving, you want to be receiving. Now, I'm not saying you can't do things for free, and you and I have done many favors for each other and many other people.
Yeah,
But there comes a point where you have to say, hey, I have to be able to take care of myself. I am still living
that's
in a
right.
physical world. I still have to be able to do my thing. And, I don't know about you, I like electricity. So,
And you like to eat?
I like to eat. These are things I enjoy. So we have to understand it's a two-way street. So I think that's probably one of the failings that I see as for people who are doing this type of selling, so to speak, or living, and they're doing all these wonderful things, and they're not living, they're not receiving. So opening up that receiving gene, I think, is important, and the feeling that you deserve to receive. And also something I think that's really important, and I think it's something that changed dynamically for me and really made a lot of changes, was I started to expect to receive. And that
Ah,
changed everything, because my expectation was not, back in the day, it was, hey, I'm just going to help everybody out, see what happens. And I had to shift out of that to say, yeah, I'm going to help everybody, but I also expect to receive for all the wonderful things that I'm doing to help other people. And the universe wants us to be balanced, not out of balance. So I think that's an important thing for people to understand. And, I've done a lot of events with, spoken in front of people who are psychics and healers and all these things that they do, all these wonderful things, and they're not making any money and they can't support themselves. And they're not opening themselves up to receive. So it's a very fine line between the ego and then the humble, graceful side of just receiving for what you do. So we have to manage it, because we're still humans, and we can go off the rails pretty quick. But it's something to
right.
just be aware of, that we put that out there, and that energy that, yeah, I
Mhm.
expect to receive for what I'm doing.
And do you think a lot of that also has to do with money blocks that are established from the time we're children?
Well, yeah, I think it comes back to unworthiness, right? That's the
Yeah.
feeling. So I don't know that it's a money block. I think it's a feeling of and again, it goes back to, we know all these things are karmic and go back to our childhood. So if you were set up in a position, I know I was, that I was supposed to help everybody and get nothing. So that was my energy. That's what the way I operated. I didn't think of operating in a different way until I did this work and enlightened myself and said, wait a minute, why am I doing this? And then I realized, oh, that was the way it was set up for me as a kid. So, I lost my dad young, was doing everything for everybody else. I was placed in that position of, being the oldest boy and so forth. So I was expected to self-sacrifice and do everything for everyone and get nothing and be okay with it. And I was. And as a result, I ended up going bankrupt twice by 30 and struggling. And until I did work on myself, and I said, wait a minute, this is not a good system. Need to make some changes here. And that's when it started to turn around. So I think these are all things that I think a lot of us who do this kind of work have that healing, helping energy, but we have to balance it with the other side.
So I know there's a story that you've shared with me a few times about a job that you had where it was very cutthroat. And because you shifted into the soul selling perspective and energy, you were always the number one salesperson in that job. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it was one of those things where it was all about the numbers and this and that, and to go kill everybody. And I just was not doing that. I just didn't do it. And I did, even though everybody kept talking about the numbers and making phone calls, whatever they were doing, like the normal stuff you would do in sales. And I just started applying these principles. And then the guy would come, the manager, who was a hardcore sales guy, he would be like, well, like, what is it that, like, he didn't get what I was doing. I said, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm just like being myself and I'm helping people. That's what I'm doing. And I could see that his face went blank. He had no idea what I was talking about. But he didn't care because I was bringing in revenue and he was getting a commission on me because I was one of his salespeople. So he didn't really bother me, but I knew he didn't get it. And he just didn't understand what I was doing. It was just like, okay, let me just leave this guy alone because he's doing well. And I don't need to understand what he's doing. And I was very autonomous and I did my thing. But, it's hard for a lot of people, especially, and I work a lot still in sales organizations. And, people have a hard time because they're so conditioned to old school belief systems and, where you make calls and the numbers and blah, blah, blah. So it is definitely still there. I think it's getting a little better, but I will say overall, for most people in the sales world, they're still kind of in the old paradigm.
So if you were to define the old paradigm, can you describe it in just a couple sentences?
Well, it's capitalism, right? It's basically you go out there and it's all about the numbers, and it's whatever you have to do to get those numbers, you go out there and do it. There's also, and some companies, they will be concerned about the clients as far as the customer service element, but as far as how they treat their people, it's like, hey, it's a numbers game and this is how we do it. And if you're not performing, then you're out. It's very cut and dry. It's very black and white. So that I would say is the traditional sales model that most companies work with, and they don't understand there's so much happening in between that you don't understand, but that's how they operate.
And how do you describe the opposite of that, which is spiritual selling?
Well, I'm going to tell you the one question I started asking people when I was a sales manager, and I started to infuse, because I started testing this when I was a sales manager working in corporate, and I would sit down with the reps and I would say to them, how do you feel? And they looked at me like I was insane. Because nobody ever said that. People always said, how many phone calls did you make? And how many presentations? And how many contracts do you have you're working on? And people said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, how do you feel when you go out there? And there were people who actually broke down and cried in my office. There were people who got very emotional. And they said, I don't understand why you're asking me that question. I said, because I know how you feel is going to impact your level of success. So the minute they unburdened themselves and said, I feel like I'm under too much pressure, I'm not appreciated, or whatever it is that they felt, they were able to do that and have that conversation openly. And I empowered them then to say, hey, go do what you have to do. Trust yourself. Be confident in who you are. And all of a sudden, the people who took it to heart started to dramatically change. And it was not about me yelling at them or telling them to make more phone calls or all the stuff that I learned in sales and management training that I went through. Mm-hmm. It was about just connecting with somebody emotionally and saying, how do you feel? And how can I help you? And, I'm not saying, I don't want to say work for everybody, but it had a dramatic impact on people who are open to it.
What is the number one thing that you find that happens to these folks who end up owning and shifting into soul selling and spiritual selling?
Well, I think they become more balanced and they get away from, they become more connected to the big picture, and they become, for lack of a better term, they're less third dimensional. They're less nuts and bolts. They're more like saying, wow, these are people and they have lives and they understand people at a higher level, and they create a much better environment for people to work in. And that's why people want to work for certain people, because they like the feeling that they have in that company. You leave a job because you don't like how you feel, right?
Yeah.
You don't leave. If you feel good, you'll stay there, even if it's less money. This has been proven out in many surveys where I'll take less money if I feel better there. And I think this is something that people don't understand. And, still to this day, and I think it's still a problem.
I know it's still a problem because I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I'm going to share this. I just shared it this week in another Shiftology Live earlier in the week. I was 16 years old when I got my first job, and I was working in a women's shoe store. And all women love shoes. They love shoes, except my boss was a third dimensional salesperson. Everything was nuts and bolts. Everything was about the money. With him, the women would buy the shoes, they exchange money, end of story. He wasn't getting it that buying shoes was an emotional process. Women love, that's a big deal for women to be wearing a great pair of shoes. So even at the age of 16, I got that. And I was spending lots of time with the client, and I was very vocal when they didn't look right. And I was vocal when they did look right. And we had a great time. One day, my boss says to me, "You're fired." Why? Because I spent too much time with the client.
Yeah, there you go.
What are you talking about?
Right.
Make a long story short, I walked down the sidewalk. I got a job at the restaurant next door at the lunch counter. And 2 weeks later, he comes walking in and he says, "Would you come back to work for me?" And I said, "You got to be kidding me. You fired me. I spent too much time with the client. Why?" He said, all the women are coming in asking for you.
Yeah.
And if they can't have you, they walk out.
There you go.
And I was 16. I didn't realize I was doing spiritual selling then.
But just in you of who you are. And I'm a big shoe person myself, and I get very emotional about my shoe purchases, just so you know.
Oh, that's great. So I'm sharing that story because that was my first job out the gate.
Yeah.
And it really taught me about the power of just serving from the heart and the power of really caring. And I think I'm glad it happened because I think it taught this guy something. I saw him, I saw him many years later in different women's shoe stores. I mean, that ended up being his career, and he always avoided me. But, hopefully it taught him something, because when you've got a 16-year-old kid that people come in to buy shoes just because you're 16 years old, that says something. And that is spiritual selling. And when I was reading your book, when I read it the first time, I didn't get that scenario. And then when I did the video this week, it's like, oh my God, I've been doing spiritual selling since I was a wee one. I was really little, and I didn't even realize it because it is ingrained in me. So do you think, having said that, do you think that spiritual selling is ingrained in some people and it has to be learned by others? What do you think about that concept?
I think it's definitely ingrained in some people. I right away never felt comfortable doing anything that didn't feel right for me. And I noticed the difference because there are other people who were like, who cares? So I know, people would say to me, well, I'm going to sell this guy this because I could get more commission. And if I didn't feel good about it, I wouldn't do it. And I would get in trouble because they'd say, well, how come you didn't sell the person the bigger? At the time I was selling advertising space. And I said, well, I didn't think, they're a new business. And I thought this was a good way to get them started. That was better than letting them spend more money. But that was just part of, like you said, you as a 16-year-old, me the same way. It just didn't feel good to do something that I didn't, feel aligned with. Like I said, there were other people, they were just like, hey, I'm going to sell them the most I can and get the biggest commission. They didn't care. So I think there are certain people who will always be like that. I don't care what happens. That's just who they are. They're going to cut your heart out. And I think there are other people who can never be like that. So I think part of it is in you, and you have to have a desire to change. If you don't, because I know people my whole life that are still operating that way, and they will never change.
And are they successful?
Some are. Some are financially successful. Their lives are not, most of them, their lives are pretty wrecked, but I mean, they could be very financially successful. And I think a lot of people are financially successful, doing things like that. But again, there's always karmically a price to pay, as we know, if you've hurt people with intent. Again, sometimes we hurt people without intent, but if you don't care and you're doing things that are hurting others, then that's going to be, that energy will come back around.
Right. Well, we're talking about the feelings and emotions. There is a system to spiritual selling.
Yes.
And so this isn't just about emotions. It's not just about spirituality. It is also about systems. And that in the Unstoppable Intuitive Entrepreneurs Group and in my business, Intuitive Leadership, we talk about the practical, the personal, and the spiritual side of business. And that's what I love about this book, is that you do get into all three areas when it comes to selling. So can you tell me a little bit about the spiritual selling system?
Well, I think we have to understand that we're living in a physical world, right? We are in a beautiful, if it was a perfect world, you and I would wake up in the morning, the exact perfect person would call me every day, pay me a lot of money and say, you're great, right? We know that would happen. But we're not living in that world. We're living in a physical third dimensional world. So it's like if I go to a restaurant and they're disorganized and I can't get my dinner, then I'm not going back there. It's the same thing. So when I deal with a salesperson, when I deal with a business, I need a process to take me from point A to point B to point C to the end. So if somebody wants to buy a program of mine and they go on my website, they can't do it, then I don't have a process in place that works and I can't generate revenue. When I go out and sell something, if someone wants to talk to me, I need a process, I need structure, I need how do I sell it? How much is it? All this is important. So it's not just, sit there, meditate and hope for the best, because we are still living in a physical world. And we do need to have a process in place for the person to be able to interact with us in the third dimensional world that we live in now. Now, maybe there will be a time when that doesn't happen. Right now, that is not the time that we're in. So if you don't have some kind of process in place, you doesn't mean you can't do okay or do well, but you're definitely going to not do as well as you should. And if you're disorganized and you can't do things in an organized manner and have a process in place, you definitely won't do as well. Doesn't mean you can't succeed, but definitely you're gonna leave a lot of money on the table, as we say.
Right. And that process is all about how to connect with the client, number one. Number two, what open-ended questions to ask to find the pain that the client has so that you can offer solutions. Thirdly, it's how to enroll the client into your product or your service, and how to do follow-up if they don't buy when you're interacting with them. Am I on target with that?
Yeah, pretty much. And of course, one very important thing you missed is how to get paid. So I want to get paid, right? That's a big one. So, I mean, I think it's, again, you take them through the process. When I do a lot of consulting work. So I'll sit down with the client. Okay, this is what's going on. This is what you want to do. I'm like, okay, this is what I can do for you. This is how much it'll cost. This is the way it's going. So I'm giving you everything. I'm not making it up as I go along. I know exactly, okay, this is what you want. This is how much time you need. This is what I'm going to charge you for that. We can negotiate or whatever it is. If you want to add things or take things out, that's fine. But there's a straight line to the end. I don't get to the end and say, well, let me see what happens and let's hope this works out. Okay, this is what you want. This is how much it's going to cost. And then we're going to work on the other part. Is there a contract? How are you going to pay me? Is this going to be a check? Is this going to be a direct deposit? All those little credit card, all these little details that are part of, getting it done in the physical world. So this is all part of it. It's not open to conjecture at the end. It's like, I'm going to take you from beginning to end. And then if it doesn't work out, that's fine. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's a follow-up. Sometimes I get a call 6 months later that the person wasn't ready then. That's fine. So again, you're not going to close everyone on the spot, but the ones but if you go in with that intent, and if you also feel aligned with the person, everything's good, and everybody feels good about it, then it'll work out most of the time.
So there is a philosophy that that it takes about 12 touches to make a sale. Do you believe that?
I've heard 7, I've heard 12, I've heard a million different numbers. I think the world we're in now, it really depends. There's so many variables. I mean, somebody could come, see you speak, let's say, for the first time and say, oh my God, I love Terry. I want to do something with her. They just resonate right away. Other
Mhm.
people have, contacted me. I had a great story years ago. I was sending out a newsletter every week. I forget what it was, email at the time. And a guy contacted me and he said, I've been on your list for almost 2 years
No.
and you don't seem to be going away. So I want to work with you. So I took that as a compliment because I don't
Oh,
even know.
that's
The guy somehow
hysterical.
got on my list and he stayed on my list and I kept sending out content and good information on a regular basis. I don't even know if I didn't know who he was. And he sent me this email. I was hysterically laughing because he said, you don't seem to be going away. Like that was a compliment, right? To say like, you're not one of these fly by night guys that's coming in
Yeah.
and out. So for that person, they needed to know that who they were going to deal with was legit. And that was their
Hmm.
process to get there. So I think
Got it.
everybody's different. Some people are going to just fall in love with you right away, which has happened, and say, "I just love your work."
Hmm.
People have said to me,
Yeah.
"Oh, the first time I heard you speak, or I heard you on a show, or I read your book, it just resonated with me, and I knew I wanted to
Hmm.
work with you." So I don't know that there's a hard and fast rule, but I will tell you that you want to remain visible. You want to keep providing content and information to help people, and then the right people will come into your door.
Brilliant. And one last question. How important is it, Joe, that we really love what it is that we're selling?
I get this a lot. And again, I'll go back to the beginning. There are those people, they don't care if they're selling, space shuttles or bottle caps. They just would say, show me the comp plan. How do I make money? I've worked with them. I've seen them succeed. Their focus is on money. They kill it. And you just say, they don't care what it is. Those types of people can succeed because that's where their energy is. I think when you are in this space of working from a soul perspective, you have to have a good, I'm not going to say you have to love it 100%. Maybe it's not your dream, but you have to feel good about it. Like I'll work with people in companies, they may have other projects on the side or they're doing that job in between or whatever the case, but they believe in what they're selling, they like the product they're selling, they feel good about the company. That's a very important factor to be a soul seller. If you don't have those elements and that's the way you operate, you will not be able to sell.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Well, this has been very enlightening. And
Oh,
as always, it's a blast. Every time we get
always,
together, it's an
always
absolute
fun.
blast. And I'd like to share a little bit about what we have in store and how you can get more of Joe and myself. We have a class coming up. It is a 12-week course, how to target and connect with your ideal client. We get into law of attraction, stress management. We're going to be clearing out blocks. I'm also going to be teaching the disc language of communication so that you can read your client. The golden rule is do unto others as you would like to be done unto. But when it comes to sales, it's actually the platinum rule. Do unto others as they would like to be done unto. So when you do that from the heart, magic begins to happen. So that starts on November 1st. So if you'd love to know more about that, please put it down. Please say the word sales down underneath the comment section, and we will reach out to you and give you the details on the program. So, Joe, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It was
Always.
absolutely fantastic. Joe is also in our whoops, where are we? Is also in our, whoa, where are we? There we are, the Facebook group. And you can ask questions in there too, Unstoppable Intuitive Leaders. And we will be in there. It's been sales week. It's been actually sales month for the last couple months, or for the last couple weeks. Several videos on the fear of success, how to enroll people. This one here, spiritual selling. So some really juicy stuff on how to improve your sales game. So Joe, as always, thank you so very much. And to the audience, we love doing spiritual lives to assist you in business and life. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. To your success.